What would you do if someone stole your identity, your future, your name, and got away with it? Tonight's story isn't just about a lie. It's about the kind of betrayal only family can pull off. One brother, two faces, and a life that spiraled into chaos, all because the wrong person was believed. You're about to hear from Elijah, a young man who went to prison for a crime he didn't commit because his identical twin brother took everything. His scholarship, his dreams, even his freedom. This is not your average crime story. It's raw, personal, infuriating, and as the truth unravels, you'll realize how terrifying it is to lose your voice in a world that only listens to the louder lie. Trust me, you'll want to watch this one to the very end. If you enjoy gripping true-style stories like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us keep bringing stories like these to life. My name is Elijah, and I remember the exact moment everything shattered. The room was cold. Not just the temperature, the kind of cold that seeps under your skin, the kind that wraps around your spine and whispers, "This is not just a bad dream. This is happening." Two detectives sat across from me, their eyes sharp, faces blank. One of them tapped a file. The other leaned in like he already knew I was guilty. "Do you know why you're here, Elijah?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "I really don't." The tapping stopped. The silence that followed felt like a drop before the fall. "A 17-year-old girl says you assaulted her. At a party. Friday night." I blinked. "What?" "No. That is not possible. I was not at any party. I was home. I was alone." The other detective cut in. "No one saw you. No alibi. But we have witnesses placing you there. Her friend said she talked to you. Your face. Your voice. Even your name." I could not breathe, because I knew who had been at that party. And I knew exactly what he had done. Ezra, my twin brother. Identical, down to the last freckle under our left eye. The same walk. The same laugh. The same everything. But we were not the same. Not on the inside. I was born 3 minutes before him. 3 minutes older. 3 minutes wiser, my mom always said. It had been a joke in our family. A cute thing to say. But now, it felt like the cruelest curse. 3 minutes was not enough to protect me from what was coming. They showed me photos next. Grainy screenshots from someone's phone. A dark room. A crowd. A face that looked just like mine. Smiling. Drunk. The girl said she had been pulled upstairs. That she said no. That the guy would not stop. That guy looked like me. I did not say a word after that. Because I knew whatever I said, it would not matter. They had what they thought was evidence. They had a name. They had me. I was 13 when I realized Ezra did not just lie. He became the lie. He would take my notebook and copy my answers. Blame me when he skipped class. Our teachers could not tell us apart. Neither could our grandmother. But I always knew. Ezra's eyes were different. Mine searched for truth. His searched for opportunity. When we were 16, he stole a wallet from a teacher's desk. I found it in his backpack. I gave it back quietly, told the teacher he must have dropped it. Ezra just grinned at me in the hallway, like I had done him a favor. That was the pattern. He messed up. I cleaned up. He lied. I covered. He took. I gave. Until I had nothing left. That night in the police station, they let me call my parents. My mom cried before I even said a word. My dad asked, "Why would she say this, Elijah? Why would she lie?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to say, "She is not lying. She just picked the wrong brother." But I did not. Because I knew they would never believe me. Ezra had them wrapped around his finger. He always had. He was charming when he needed to be. He could cry on cue. Smile through guilt. And now he was wearing my face and walking free. I spent the next 3 days in juvenile holding. The bed was hard. The food was worse. But the real torture was in my head. What was Ezra doing now? Was he sitting at home, playing my favorite playlist? Wearing my Stanford hoodie? Laughing with my friends? Was he sleeping in my bed? Did he feel anything? I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. Every time I closed them, I saw the girl's face. The fear. The pain. And I hated Ezra for what he had done. But I also hated myself. Because I let this happen. I let it slide too many times. The copied homework. The stolen ID. The silent smirks. I should have told someone. I should have drawn the line. Now I was paying the price. On the fourth day, they brought me into a courtroom. I sat in an orange jumpsuit while people whispered in the back rows. The girl pointed at me. "That is him," she said. And I wanted to scream. "It is not." But my voice felt too small. My name felt poisoned. Ezra was not even in the room. Of course he was not. He never had to be. He let me rot while he lived my life. And, the worst part, everyone believed him. The first time I knew something was wrong was the morning I could not find my wallet. It was not just the wallet. It was what was inside it. My school ID. My state ID. My Stanford application letter. Letters of recommendation. My honor roll certificate. Gone. I tore apart my backpack, my desk drawer, my nightstand. I even flipped the mattress. Nothing. "Did you take my stuff?" I asked Ezra, standing in our shared room, staring straight into the eyes that looked just like mine. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "No," he said casually, without blinking. "You sure?" He shrugged. "Why would I want your boring school crap?" "Because you are failing," I wanted to say. "Because you are desperate. Because you are running out of lies." But I kept my mouth shut. I wanted to believe he was telling the truth. Even after everything, I tried to reprint what I could. Called the school. Asked for reissues. Told them I lost it. I did not say stolen. I did not say Ezra. Because if I accused him and I was wrong, my parents would say I was paranoid. And if I was right, no one would believe me anyway. That had always been the game. Ezra lied. I swallowed it. Ezra stole. I stayed quiet. Ezra smiled. Everyone clapped. 3 days later, he walked into the kitchen wearing my Stanford hoodie. That was not just any hoodie. That hoodie was from the summer program I had attended on campus. The one I worked my ass off to get into. It was mine. My pride. He wore it like a joke. "Where did you get that?" I asked. He poured cereal into a bowl and smirked. "Laundry basket," he said. "Relax. It is just a sweatshirt." But it was not. It felt like a warning. Like he was saying, I can take what I want. Then the letter came. I found it in the mailbox 2 days later. A big, thick envelope from Stanford admissions. My heart jumped. This was it. The moment I had been working towards since freshman year. The reason I skipped parties. The reason I studied until my eyes bled. I ripped it open. I read the first line. And everything inside me froze. "Congratulations, Elijah Carter. We are pleased to offer you full admission to Stanford University." But I had not submitted anything. Not with the missing ID. Not after losing my transcripts. That application was never completed. At least not by me. I stood there, on the porch, holding the letter in shaking hands. Then I looked up. Ezra stood at the window, watching me, smiling. I confronted him that night. Stormed into our room. Slammed the door. "You submitted my application." He was sitting on the bed, scrolling through his phone. "Sorry, what?" he said without looking up. "You used my name. My achievements. My essays. You took everything." He finally looked up. "You sound crazy right now. You knew I was applying. You stole my wallet. You took my documents. You." "Prove it," he said. 2 words. Quiet. Cold. Confident. I stepped closer. My fists clenched. "You are not me." He stood up. His face was mine. His voice was mine. "You sure about that?" We stared at each other. 2 faces. 1 truth. And no way to prove it. Because here is the thing about being an identical twin. Same fingerprints. Same DNA. Same blood type. Same everything. And Ezra had always known that. He had always known that the moment he stepped into my shoes, the world would clap. And I would be the crazy one yelling in the background. That week, our parents were glowing. Can you believe it? Mom said, holding the letter. Elijah, we are so proud of you. Ezra walked in, holding a mug. Thanks, Mom, he said with a wink. I said nothing. What could I say? Actually, that is not me. That is Ezra pretending to be me while I stand here watching him steal my life. They would think I had lost it. And maybe I had. At school, the teachers congratulated him. Good job, Elijah. They meant him. He accepted it with a smile. And I sat 2 rows behind, burning inside. My guidance counselor pulled me aside. I am glad you finally made it, she said. You were always so quiet about your goals. I looked her in the eyes. That was not me, I whispered. She frowned. What? But I backed away, because saying the truth out loud made it sound even more insane. That night, I looked in the mirror. I stared at my reflection, and for the first time in my life, I was not sure who I was looking at. Me? Or him? Or something in between. He had not just stolen my documents. He had stolen me. I punched the wall that night, not because I thought it would solve anything, not because I expected the pain to help me think. I just needed to feel something real, because nothing around me felt real anymore. My name was being worn like a costume. My life was being acted out by someone else. And the worst part? Everyone was clapping for him. The next morning, I went to school early, sat outside the counselor's office waiting for the door to unlock. My legs were shaking. My hands were ice. When she finally came in, she looked surprised. Elijah? Everything okay? No, I said. I need to talk to you. It is important. She nodded and opened the door. I sat across from her and told the whole truth. I told her about the missing ID, about the fake application, about Ezra using my name. I told her I had never gone to the Stanford interview, that Ezra had gone in my place. She listened quietly, her face unreadable. When I finished, I waited, expecting shock or concern, maybe even help. But instead, she leaned forward, folded her hands, and said softly, Elijah, are you sure this is not just about pressure? College can be overwhelming. My heart sank. No, you do not understand. He stole my identity. I know this is a hard time of year. You and Ezra are so close. Sometimes it is easy to feel we are not close. I snapped. We share a face, not a soul. She blinked. Then she smiled, that sad, careful smile adults use when they think you are lying to protect your ego. I think you should talk to someone. A school therapist, maybe. This sounds like a lot to carry alone. I stood up. She stood up too. Elijah, I want to help you. But unless you have proof. 2 words. 2 words I had already heard before. Prove it. I walked out of that office with fire in my chest. I was done playing nice. I started watching Ezra, tracking him, writing things down. What he wore, what he said, how he spoke to people. When he left the house, I tried to find mistakes, a slip-up, a crack. But he was always one step ahead. He cleaned up after himself. He smiled at teachers. He opened doors for Mom. He wore my skin better than I ever had. One night at dinner, Dad said, "We are proud of you, son. You really turned it around this year." Ezra grinned and nodded. Thanks, Dad. I dropped my fork. It clattered on the floor. My mother bent to pick it up. Elijah, be careful. Ezra just looked at me across the table. His eyes dared me.
Say it, they said.
Call me out. Go ahead.
So I did.
He is not me. The whole table went silent. What are you talking about? Dad asked. That is Ezra, not Elijah. He used my name to get into Stanford. He stole my application. Elijah, Mom said sharply. Stop it.
No.
He is lying to you. He is lying to everyone. Ezra leaned back, arms crossed. You okay, bro? He said, voice calm. This is getting weird. Dad stood up. Enough. I do not know what this is about, but it ends here. I stood too. He is playing all of you. Mom reached for my arm. Sweetheart, please. Do not do this. I am not doing anything. He is the one. Elijah. Dad's voice was louder now. Sit down. I looked at them. Then I looked at him. And I knew. I had lost them too. That night, Ezra knocked on my door. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. He leaned in the doorway, eating an apple. You good? He asked. I did not answer. He took another bite, then laughed. You are really going all in with a crazy twin act. Kind of impressive. I stood up. Why? I asked. Why are you doing this? He shrugged. Because I can. I stepped closer. You are ruining everything. No, I am living everything. You were never going to make it, Elijah. You do not have what it takes. You freeze. You overthink. You hide. I worked for this. And I took it. That is how the world works. Winners take. Losers watch. I wanted to hit him. Right there. Just once. But I knew what would happen. He would scream. And the house would believe him. Just like everyone else. Go ahead, he said, reading my face. Hit me. Make it easier for me to take the rest. He tossed the apple core on my floor and walked out. I did not sleep that night. I did not cry either. I just stared at the ceiling, waiting for morning, wondering how much more of myself I had left to lose. The call came just before midnight. Dad's voice shook me awake. Elijah, get downstairs.
Now.
I blinked, confused.
What? Why?
What happened? But he was already gone. I rushed down barefoot. My mom stood in the hallway with her hand covering her mouth. Her eyes were red, her body frozen like glass. Ezra stood next to her. He looked pale. Not scared, not sad. Just empty. Like he had seen the future and decided not to feel anything about it. There were 2 police officers at the door. One of them looked straight at me. Elijah Carter? I nodded slowly. We need to ask you some questions about a party that took place tonight at 1240 Chestnut Drive. My heart dropped. I was not at any party, I said. I was home. I was right here all night. Do you have anyone who can confirm that? I looked at my parents. They looked at Ezra. Ezra said nothing. In the kitchen, they sat me down. The taller officer opened a small notebook. Were you at a party tonight where alcohol was served?
No.
Do you know a girl named Madison King? I shook my head.
No.
I do not know her. She says you attacked her upstairs in a room with no lights. She says you locked the door, and I was not there, I said louder now. I have no idea who she is. I swear. She identified you by face, by name. She even pointed to your yearbook photo. Said she had seen you around school. That was not me. The officers exchanged looks. The shorter one asked, Is there anyone else who could have gone in your place? And my chest went tight. Because here it was. The moment. The truth. Yes, I said. My brother. Your brother? My twin. Ezra. He has been pretending to be me for weeks now.
He stole my ID.
He applied to Stanford using my name. He could have gone to that party as me. You need to ask him. I pointed toward the hallway, but the officers shook their heads. He says he has been home all night, that he was playing video games. That is not true. Your parents confirm his story. Then they are wrong. They stood up. We are not arresting you tonight, but we are going to continue the investigation. You should stay available for questioning. I followed them to the door. Please, I said. I did not do this. We will be in touch. They walked out, and I turned to face my family. My father stared at me like I was a stranger. My mother looked like she wanted to disappear. You think Ezra did this? My dad asked. I know he did. That is a serious accusation. So, is what the police just said to me. Ezra leaned against the wall.
Come.
Hands in his pockets. I was here all night, he said. Ask Mom. Ask Dad. She is lying, I said.
Ezra looked at me.
I get that you're stressed, that you are scared, but blaming me for everything? That is messed up. I am not blaming you. I am telling the truth. And you expect everyone to believe it? I stared at him.
He stared back.
One of us was lying, and they all believed it was me. The next morning, Madison's story was everywhere. People whispered in the halls. Girls looked at me like I was poison. Teachers spoke softer when I walked by. I could feel it all sinking in, even though I had never touched her, never met her, never seen her. It did not matter, because the boy she described looked like me, talked like me, and wore my name. I sat alone at lunch. Ezra passed by with his tray. He stopped. "Rough day?" he asked. I looked up at him. He leaned in close. "Tell me something," he whispered. "What does it feel like to be erased?" I clenched my fists under the table. "You will not get away with this." "I already have." Then he walked away. After school, I skipped the bus and went to Madison's house. I stood on the sidewalk. I did not have a plan. I just needed to see her, to know if maybe she could tell the difference. She came out to take the trash. She saw me and froze. Her face twisted into fear. Then anger. "Get away from me," she said. "I am not who you think I am. You are Elijah Carter."
No.
"I am his brother." She backed up toward the door. "I know your face. I know your voice. It was you." "I swear to you it was not." She slammed the door. I stood there in the dark, on her lawn, with the cold sinking into my skin. And I finally understood something. The truth was not enough. Because the lie looked exactly like me. They called my name like they meant it. "Elijah Carter, please rise." I stood. My palms were sweating. My heart slammed against my ribs. My lawyer glanced at me, then at the jury.
Calm. Too calm.
Across the room, Ezra sat next to my parents. He wore a blue button-down shirt and my watch. My watch. He gave me a little nod. No smile. No wink. Just that quiet confidence that said, "This is over. You lost." The prosecution opened with passion. They told the jury who I was.
Smart. Popular.
Charming. The kind of boy no one suspected. They painted me as a wolf in sheep's clothing. The quiet one. The calculated one. The one who knew how to cover his tracks. They described the party. The bedroom. Madison's cries. Her fear. Her testimony. And all of it pointed to me. To Elijah Carter. Not the person who did it. Just the name that matched the face. When it was my turn, I told the truth. I told them about Ezra. About how he had taken my ID. How he submitted my application. How he had worn my name and my life like a costume. I told them I had been home that night. Alone. I showed the timeline I had built. The messages. The security footage from a gas station that showed Ezra 5 blocks away in my hoodie. I told them he was left-handed. I was not. But it did not matter. Because the photo of the boy at the party looked like me. Because the victim said my name. Because Ezra sat in the courtroom, blinking slowly, looking exactly like me. Only cleaner.
Sharper.
Better. The prosecutor turned to the jury and said, "Twins are not science fiction. They are not clones. They are people. And people do not get to blame someone else for what they did." He looked at me, then added, "This is not a novel. This is real life." The jury nodded. And I knew. Before they even read the verdict. I knew.
Guilty.
2 years. That was the sentence. 2 years in a juvenile facility. 2 years for a crime I did not commit. 2 years for being born with the wrong brother. The handcuffs clicked too fast. The bailiff avoided my eyes. My mom cried behind her hands. My dad looked away. Ezra? Ezra stood still. No reaction. Just a slight tilt of his head. Like a man studying a painting he was proud of. The drive to the facility was quiet. I stared out the window, watching the world blur past me. Houses.
Cars. People.
Free people. I pressed my forehead to the glass and whispered the same question over and over. Who am I now? The cell was small. Metal bed. Thin mattress. A toilet in the corner. The first night, I laid there with my eyes open. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just stared at the ceiling and thought about the graduation ceremony happening in 2 weeks. The one I would miss. The one Ezra would attend.
And he did.
My mom sent photos. She thought she was sending them to comfort me. A text that said, "He did it. We are proud of you." The picture showed him in a black cap and gown, sitting next to my classmates, smiling in my seat, wearing my cords, my stole, my name. I stared at the screen for an hour before turning it off. He had stolen everything, and I had no way to stop him. In the days that followed, I kept my head down. I followed the rules. I stayed quiet. I ate what they gave me. I swept the floors. I kept my bed tight and clean. The other inmates ignored me for the most part. Some laughed at my case. "You're the twin guy, right?"
Damn.
That is messed up. I would have blamed my brother too. And I said nothing, because I was tired of screaming into silence. I started writing. Letters I would never send. Notes I would never show. I wrote down every memory of Ezra pretending to be me. Every lie he told. Every time he smiled while I bled. It made me feel like I still existed. Like I still mattered. Like I was still me. Then, one day, a guard came into my unit with a yellow envelope.
"For you," he said.
I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a photo. Ezra again. Sitting at our dinner table. In my seat. Between my parents. Holding my niece. My family smiling like nothing was wrong. Like I had never been gone. Like I never existed at all. I put the photo face down on the desk. I looked around the gray walls of my cell. And for the first time since the trial, I let the tears fall. Not from weakness. Not from fear. But because something inside me was starting to shift. Not break.
Shift.
Something cold. Something sharp. Something that whispered, "This is not over." And I believed it. There is a kind of silence they do not talk about. Not the silence of night. Not the silence of an empty room. I am talking about the silence that wraps around your name like a noose. The silence that makes you question if you were ever real at all. That is what I lived with. Every day, behind bars. Not the noise of the other inmates. Not the clanging doors or shouting guards. But the silence in my chest. Where my identity used to be. They called me Elijah. Because that was the name on the paperwork. But it did not feel like mine anymore. That name had been worn too many times by someone who was not me. That name had smiled in my graduation photo. That name had shaken hands with my teachers, hugged my mother, thanked the world. That name had ruined a girl's life. And now it was mine again.
Stained. Shattered.
Misused.
Mine.
I stopped talking much. People in here had stories. Some of them were liars. Some of them were monsters. But all of them had one thing in common. They wanted to be heard. I did not. I just wanted to be seen. For once. Not mistaken. Not copied. Not doubted. Just seen. I got a job in the library. Stacking books. It was quiet. Peaceful. Away from the fights, the noise, the stares. One day, I found a battered notebook tucked between two law books. Empty pages. No name. No history. It felt right. I took it back to my bunk that night, opened it, and started writing. I wrote everything.
Not just the crime.
Not just the lie. Everything. From the day Ezra first copied my homework to the night he wore my hoodie and became me. I made lists. Habits. Patterns. Tiny differences. I wrote about how I was right-handed and he was left. How I chewed pens when I was anxious. He snapped them in half. How I tapped my foot when I lied. Ezra stood still. I wrote until my hands cramped. Because I had nothing else. Because words were all I had left. I wrote like I was building a case. Because maybe I was. Not for the court. Not for the police.
For me.
To remind myself I still existed. That I had not imagined all of this. That I was not crazy. That the boy in the mirror was real, and he had been stolen. Sometimes I imagined standing in front of a judge again. But this time the jury listened. They looked closer. They saw the truth. Ezra's lies fell apart one by one, until he stood naked in the spotlight, no name to hide behind. And me? I got my life back. But then I would wake up to cold floors and gray walls. And I would remember. That story was still fiction. I started watching people more. The way they walked, the way they scratched their heads or held their forks, looking for patterns, looking for proof that people can see if they really try. That no one is truly identical. That identity is more than a face or a voice. It is in the details. And maybe someday, those details would save me. Every Sunday, they let us write letters. I never sent mine, but I wrote them anyway. To the judge, to Madison, to my parents, to Ezra. The one I wrote to him was short. Just 2 lines. You broke me, but I am still here. I folded it, then tore it up. He did not deserve my words.
Not yet.
6 months in, a teacher from a volunteer program started coming in. Creative writing, reading, talking about truth and voice. His name was Mr. Keller. He asked us once, "What do you think truth feels like?" Some guy said, "It hurts." Another said, "It gets you killed." But I said nothing. I wanted to say, "It feels like screaming into a hurricane." But I stayed quiet, because in my world, truth never made a sound loud enough to matter. Mr. Keller noticed me. He said I wrote like I had something to prove. I told him I did. He asked if I ever wanted to publish my story. I laughed. Who would believe it? I said. He looked at me. Truth is not about who believes it. It is about whether you can live with it still stuck inside. Those words hit something deep, because I had been living with it. Stuck. Twisting. Burning. Maybe it was time to let it out. Even if no one believed me. Even if no one cared. Because I needed to hear it. Because I needed to see it. Written. Real.
Mine.
I kept writing. Every day. Pages filled. Notebooks stacked under my bunk. The silence in my chest began to shift. Still there. But lighter. Not because the pain was gone, but because I finally had something to hold on to again. Myself. It started with a knock. A soft one. Middle of the afternoon. I thought it was another counselor or maybe Keller again dropping off more notebooks. But when the door opened, I saw someone I never expected. Mr. Hanley? He smiled just a little. My old English teacher. The only one who had ever called me a writer before I believed it myself. "Hey, Elijah," he said. "You got a minute?" I nodded, stunned. He stepped inside, looked around, then pulled up a metal chair. "I was in the area," he said, "teaching a workshop at the juvenile center next door. They told me you were here." I was quiet. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He folded his hands, looked at me like he was still trying to understand something. Then he said it. "I saw something. A video." He took a breath, like he was checking himself. It was from the Stanford alumni interview session last year. I was helping with the panel. "You remember that?" Of course I remembered. It was the interview I never attended. The one Ezra went to pretending to be me. "I saw the recording again last week," he continued. "We keep them for training. And I noticed something strange." He looked me in the eyes. "You signed your name with your left hand." I blinked.
What?
"I watched you sign the form. But the Elijah Carter I taught was right-handed." I stared at him, my heart slowly catching up. He kept going. "You always used your right hand. You used to joke that your left was only good for holding coffee. You wrote essays that way. Took notes that way."
My throat was dry.
"Are you sure?" I asked. "I am an English teacher," he said. I knowed his hands. And just like that, there it was. The first crack. After almost 2 years of silence and disbelief and locked doors. A detail. Small. But real. A thread I could finally pull. "Do you still have the video?" I asked. "I can try to get it," he said. I already made a note with the timestamp. I could show it to someone. Maybe a lawyer. Maybe the state board. My hands were shaking now. This could be it. Not everything. Not enough to undo the damage. But maybe enough to start something. That night, I did not sleep. I sat on my bunk and stared at the ceiling like I had done 1,000 times before. But this time, the silence did not crush me. Because somewhere out there, a truth had slipped through the cracks. And someone finally saw it. 2 weeks later, I was called into the office. A woman in a gray blazer sat behind a desk. State investigator. She looked bored. Your teacher sent us a recording, she said. We reviewed it. She pushed a laptop toward me. Take a look. I leaned in. The footage was grainy. Security cam angle. Low light. But there he was. Ezra. Wearing my face. My clothes. Smiling that familiar fake smile. He reached for a clipboard and signed his name. With his left hand. I swallowed hard. She watched me. You are right-handed? I nodded. She clicked the video off. It is not definitive, she said. But it is interesting. Interesting. That was the word she used. Like this was a trivia question, not my life. Will it help? I asked. She shrugged. Maybe. Depends on what else we find. She stood up. We will follow up. And just like that, she was gone. But I felt it. For the first time in 2 years, the weight on my chest had shifted. Not gone, but cracking. Something inside me whispered, keep going. Back in my cell, I grabbed my notebook, flipped to a clean page. I wrote the words over and over. Left hand, wrong person. Then I wrote one more. Hope. They called it new evidence. A 15-second clip with bad lighting and a shaky frame. Ezra signing a form. With his left hand. To the rest of the world, it was nothing. To me, it was everything. 3 days after the investigator visited, a state attorney showed up. She was colder than the last one, sharper. No smiles. No small talk. We are reopening your case, she said. My ears rang. I leaned forward. You believe me? She did not answer. Instead, she laid out a folder on the table. Inside was the footage, the timestamp, the transcript from my old English teacher, the notes from the school panel, and something else, a motion, a request to re-examine my conviction. I could not breathe. I will not make promises, she said. But this is no longer a closed book. News travels fast in prison. By the time I was back in my unit, 2 guys already knew. Yo, Carter. You getting out? I ignored them. I was not getting out. Not yet. But maybe I was finally being seen. That night, my hands shook so bad, I could barely write. But I forced the pen down. I wrote the date in bold letters. Drew a line underneath. Then one word. Shift. 2 weeks later, they moved me into a different block. Less security. More light. Cleaner walls. They called it a procedural transfer. But I knew what it really was. They were preparing. Then the calls started coming in. Reporters, lawyers, people from advocacy groups I had never heard of. One man said, I read your case. I want to help you clear your name. Another woman told me, this happens more than you think. They asked for details, timelines, character witnesses, any thread I could pull. I gave them everything, every note, every date, every page from my journals. I had spent 2 years collecting evidence no one asked for. Now they were finally asking. One afternoon, my mother showed up. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. She held her purse close to her chest, like a shield. When she sat across from me, her hands trembled. She did not speak for a full minute. Then, softly, you were telling the truth. I stared at her. I always was, I said. Tears filled her eyes. I wanted to believe you. But Ezra, he made it easy not to. I nodded. Not to forgive. Not yet. But to let the weight fall between us. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside were photos. Ezra's dorm room. Abandoned. Empty bed. Drawers open. Clothes gone. He disappeared a week ago, she said. Took everything. Left no note. That sounded like him. Burn the house down, then vanish into smoke. I should have felt angry. Or satisfied. But I did not. I just felt hollow. Like Ezra had been a ghost all along, and I had spent my whole life chasing air. 2 months later, the hearing was held. I stood before the court again. Same name. Different story. This time, people listened. The video was shown. The handwriting analysis presented. My testimony read out loud. They did not cry. They did not cheer. They just watched. And that was enough. The judge looked down at me. Her voice was even. We cannot undo what has been done. But in light of the evidence presented, your conviction is hereby vacated. The words felt unreal, like I was underwater. I did not smile. I did not move. I just stood there, hearing my name being released from a cage. That night, I slept without a ceiling above me. I stared up at the sky for hours. No sirens. No buzzers. No footsteps in the dark. Just stars.
Silent. Free.
But freedom is not a clean cut. It does not come with parades or closure. It comes with whispers. People still looked at me sideways. Still Googled my name. Still judged the headlines, not the footnotes. I walked past kids at the bus stop and one of them muttered, "That is the guy." I kept walking. Because the truth is not about being liked. It is about being whole again. Ezra was still gone. No calls. No sightings.
Some said he went south.
Others said he left the country. But I knew him better than anyone. He was watching. Waiting. Because people like Ezra do not just vanish. They hide. Until the next name to where shows up. As for me, I got a job sweeping floors at a print shop. Quiet work. Honest work. I went home tired, but I went home free. I started therapy. Not for the court. For myself. The first session, my therapist asked, "What is the first thing you lost?" I said, "My name." He asked, "And the last thing?" I said, "I do not know yet." Then I looked him in the eyes. "But I am going to find it." After I got out, I thought the hardest part was over. It was not. Freedom is not freedom when your name is still a crime scene. Every time I applied for a job, they ran a background check. Every time I tried to sign up for school, the system flagged me. Even though the conviction was overturned. Even though the court admitted they were wrong. People still saw the headline, not the footnote. I was no longer in a cell. But I was still not free. I stopped using my full name in public. Sometimes I introduced myself as Eli. Sometimes not at all. But I always felt like I was apologizing for breathing. Like I had to earn back the right to exist. One afternoon, I tried to get a library card. The woman behind the desk smiled, typed in my info, then frowned. She turned her screen slightly away. Then cleared her throat. "I am sorry, it looks like I cannot finish the registration today. Something is flagged." I thanked her, left, and sat on the curb outside. I looked myself up on my phone. The first result? Elijah Carter charged with sexual assault. Not updated. Not corrected. No mention of Ezra. No mention of the truth. Just the lie, still winning. I spent the next week writing nonstop. Not in a journal this time. Not for myself. But for everyone else. I wrote the whole story. From the night my wallet disappeared, to the day I stood in front of that judge. I added photos, screenshots, notes from my case file. I wrote like my life depended on it.
Because it did.
I posted it online, Medium, Reddit, anywhere that would take it. I started a podcast. Recorded the first episode in a cheap mic I bought secondhand. Titled it Stolen. The Twin Who Took My Life. People started listening. Slowly at first. Then faster. I got emails. Comments. Messages.
Some believed me.
Some called me a liar. But at least they were hearing me. For the first time, I was the one telling the story. A month later, I got an email from a woman named Lauren. She wrote, "I listened to your podcast. I think I met your brother. But he said his name was Elijah." I read that line 10 times. She continued, "I met him at a bar in Portland. He said he had just graduated from Stanford. But something felt off. He told me his name, but later someone called him Ezra. He froze. Then said it was a nickname. I did not buy it. She said he left the next day. Vanished. She never saw him again. But she remembered. Because a month later, her friend told her she had been assaulted. By the same guy. I asked if her friend would talk to me.
She said yes.
We met on a video call. Her name was Camila. She looked strong. But tired. She said, "When I saw your face, I thought I was losing my mind." I stayed silent. She kept going. You looked just like him. But you were not him. Her voice cracked. I remember his left hand. He had this scar under the thumb. He used it to pin me down. I held up my left hand. No scar. She let out a shaky breath. I knew it, she whispered. I knew it was not you. I asked her if she would speak out.
She said yes.
She said she was tired of being silent. She filed a report. She gave them everything. Descriptions.
Dates.
Details. And this time, they listened. Because the story was not just mine anymore. Ezra had made more victims. And now they were stepping out of the dark. The police reopened the case again. Not mine.
His.
They issued a warrant. Put his name on a list. Released his photo. Not mine.
His.
For the first time, the world finally pointed the finger in the right direction. That night, I stood in front of a mirror. Same face I had always known. But it looked different now. Not because of the scar I never had. Not because of the haircut. But because for the first time, I was not ashamed of the reflection. I whispered to myself, "My name is Elijah." I said it again. My name is Elijah, not Ezra. I said it until the words stopped shaking. Until I believed them again. Until I could say it with my whole chest. I did not get my old life back. But I was building something new. Brick by brick. Word by word. And this time, no one else was holding the pen. I thought I would feel something when it happened. When the call came. When they said the words, "We got him." Ezra had been found living in a small town in Nevada under the name Logan Parrish. He had a fake ID, a fake work history, and a fake story. But the face? That was never fake. And this time, someone finally looked close enough. They brought him back in handcuffs. For once, it was not me behind the glass. I watched his arraignment on a grainy live stream. He looked older, slightly thinner, but still him. Same eyes, same smirk, same silence. He said nothing as the charges were read. Identity theft,
Fraud.
sexual assault, multiple counts, and then something that almost made me laugh. He pled not guilty.
Of course he did.
The trial took weeks. This time, I was there every day. Not behind a defense table. Not in an orange jumpsuit. I sat in the gallery. A seat with no restraints. No chains. No shadows. The prosecutor called me the first victim. It hit hard, because for years I thought I was just the mistake. The glitch in the system. Turns out I was the first warning sign. And no one listened. The jury watched the video. The left-handed signature. The timeline. They heard from the other victims.
Camila.
Lauren's friend. Another woman from Arizona who recognized Ezra from my podcast. Piece by piece, the mask he had worn cracked open. And beneath it, there was nothing. Just a man who knew how to steal names better than he knew how to live with his own. The day the verdict came, I could not sit down. I stood by the hallway outside the courtroom, pacing. When the door finally opened, I walked back in. Ezra sat there, still stone-faced. The judge read it slowly. Guilty. On all charges. I did not cheer. I did not cry. I just closed my eyes and exhaled. Not because it fixed anything, but because it finally stopped something. Afterward, reporters circled. They wanted quotes. Headlines.
Sound bites.
I gave them one sentence. He took my life, and everyone believed him. But now, someone finally believed me. Then I walked away. That night, I stood outside alone. No lights. No stage.
Just me.
And the quiet. But this quiet was different. It was not empty. It was full. Heavy, yes. But mine. I went back to the print shop the next day. Back to sweeping floors. Filling orders. Stacking boxes. And it felt more honest than anything Ezra ever built. I was not chasing the old version of myself anymore. I was building a new one. Step by step. People started recognizing me from the podcast. Some came in just to say they listened. One man said, "You made me call my brother again. We have not spoken in years." A woman said, Your story gave me the courage to report what happened to me. I never knew what to say to that. So I just said thank you. Because sometimes surviving is not just about reclaiming your life. It is about helping someone else reclaim theirs. Months passed. Then one day, a letter came in the mail. No name on the envelope. Just a scribbled return address from a prison in Colorado. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in Ezra's handwriting.
3 lines.
You won. I never thought you would. I do not regret it. I read it twice, then burned it. Not out of rage, not to erase it, but to free myself from it. I stood over the sink, watching the ashes fall, and I whispered to myself, my name is Elijah. Not as a reminder, but as a declaration. My name is Elijah, and I am not him. You see, this is not just a story about twins, not just a story about betrayal or lies. It is a story about being erased and choosing to write yourself back into the world. It is a story about a broken system that listened to the louder voice and the quieter one that refused to go silent.
This is my story.
And now it is yours too. Sometimes the greatest pain does not come from being hurt. It comes from not being believed, from screaming the truth into a world that already made up its mind. Elijah's story is not just about a stolen name. It is about identity, about how fragile trust can be, about how quickly a lie, when told with confidence, can drown out the quiet truth. But most of all, it is a story about reclaiming yourself. Even when the system fails you, even when people walk away, even when the person who broke you wears your face, there is power in not giving up. There is strength in standing up again, even when your name has been dragged through the mud. Because the truth, it always leaves a trail. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes everything. But when the dust finally settles, truth remains. And if you are still standing, you get to write the ending. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, made you think, or simply kept you hooked until the very end, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep bringing more stories that deserve to be heard. We will see you in the next one.